We supposed to have this tutorial last week, but due to the challenges I have to postpone it to today. I lost my mom, and so we have to go there and do the necessary thing. So sorry for that. If you have the opportunity to be hearing me, I want you to please pray for my mom, my dad. They are all gone. If you are a Muslim, you can help me recite Kulu Allah 3. And if you are non-Muslim, just pray your normal prayer for me. And we that we are remaining, may we stay in this life to enjoy this life. And to every members that join me in praying this prayer, may we all be successful in life, and may we all see our grandchildren before we leave. Thank you, and welcome to tutorial and examination tips for NTI PGD students by No Big D Academy on research method in education, and the course code for this one is 708. So thank you. The person in charge, which is the lecturer in charge of this course, is a woman of integrity. When she's around, she's not encouraged. She doesn't encourage lateness to class, and she's trying to follow the handout page by page. So if you are using her handout or her material, let us try to be following everything that is teaching us page by page, so that we will not have any issue in terms of exam and the rest. As we all know, our main objective is always on to cover everything at all that we can remember. So the agenda for today's first tutorial is to discuss what is the research method in education, concept of education, variables in education, educational research, process of educational research and report writing, and step-by-step guide for educational research for beginners. So if you are just joining us and you want to be receiving notification, I will beg you or urge you to please subscribe to this channel. You can comment, you can equally like what we are doing, so that you don't miss any update. So we are starting with what is research method in education. So before we go to the meaning of research method, let's briefly look at what a research means. What is a research? Let us briefly look at it. A research may be defined as a systematic and objective analysis and reporting of control observations with a view of arrive at development of generalization, principles, theories, or explanation of phenomena. So this particular definition is in our textbook, so you can go and read it and have more understanding. But according to me and the way I understand this, I will only pick some little ambiguous definition, ambiguous words. Like the definition talk about systematic. So what it means by systematic is that this means following a plan or method step by step. So you are not just following one thing, but you are following already made plan or already made step, so that you arrive at the or you arrive or achieve a particular goal or objectives. So we made mention of objectives here is that research is based on fact and not feelings, and being fair or not letting personal opinions affect the result. So when you are carrying out a research, you are not allowed to be carrying out your research with feelings. You have to drop your feelings. So if you know that you are not good at that, it's better you don't even carry out that particular research. So if you are carrying out a research, you should have that quality of you should be able to arrive, or your research should be based on facts, and you are not expected to be having feelings, and you have to be fair enough, not letting personal opinion affect your result. So let's take note of that, and that is the meaning of that objective that I'm trying to explain here. Then we talk about reporting of controlled observations. How do we report? How do we control it? So we normally report by writing or telling others about what was carefully observed in a planned way. This means that your research should be unwritten, or except if it is in group, that when you carry out the research, then you have to like explain to those people that is going to write it down for you. But in this case, we are not in group in time of our research, because we are given an individual project to carry out the research on it. So whatever you are doing, whatever research you are carrying out, you should be writing it down. Then later you organize them according to the format they will give us. So with a view of arrive at to find out something, then we came across development of generalizations, principles, theories, or explanation of phenomena. So doing research carefully to find rules, principles, and theories that explain things that happens in the world. So that is all what a research is all about. When you are talking about phenomena, phenomena is something that happens in nature or life that we want to understand. Like e.g., we are carrying a research that is talking about rain. How does rain occur? How does earthquakes occur? Then that is what we mean by phenomena, something that happens in nature. So, and again, when we talk about theories, a theories means that a big ideas or explanation based on many studies and observation. You cannot just arrive at a theories except you have already studied some authors. Many authors have already carried out those things, and they arrive at the same answer or close to the same solution or objective. That is why you can now decide to tell people that this is a theory. And as I said, a theory is a big idea or explanation based on many studies or observation. What you study and what you observe with through many scholars. So those are the things you can call a theories. Then when we make mention of principle, a principle is a basic truth or rule that explain how something works. Then we talk about generalization, is a general rule or idea made after studying, like e.g. cats like to sleep. We have already studied the cats. We have already studied many cats, and we are now discovering that cat loves to sleep. Cat likes to sleep. So these are generalization rules or generalization ideas that many people have already observed and they agree on. This thing, before they can generalize it, they have already carried some research. They have already carried some studies. They have already carried some ideas. They have looked at the thing thoroughly before they can now generalize it as this is it. And every other person that look at it very well, they will equally recognize that this particular thing that this person talk is true. So that is what we mean by generalization. Then research, again, is a careful way of studying things step by step, using facts, watching things closely, and writing down the results to find general rules, ideas, or explanation about words. So what it means is that, for example, imagine a scientist wants to know if plants grow better in sunlight or shade. So there are some steps by steps research process so that they need to take. They can put one in the sun and put one in the under shade. Then they'll keep on monitoring it, then to know and make a conclusion that the plant outside the sun grow faster than the one under the shade. Now we have step-by-step research process. What are the step-by-step research process? We have number one, systematic. That is the scientific plan. The study by choosing two plants of the same family. They will carry two plants of the same family. That is scientific. That's number one step. We normally take that the scientific plants. Plan the study and plan and study the choosing two plants. So after that, you're now trying to like look for the objective. That is the second step. That is the scientific does not go but test both plants. Does not guess. Scientific does not guess, and as a researcher, we are not expected to be guessing. We are expected to test and observe whatever we are trying to do. And then we have control observations. So after objectives, after we have already test both the plants, then we are like to like control the observation. That is, one plant is kept in the sun and the other is kept in under the shade. That is, we are to carefully watching under set condition. So the next step is to analyze the analysis. That is, carefully studying the results. After 2 weeks, the scientific measures how much each plant has grown. And number fifth step is to reporting. That is, sharing the results. The scientific writes down the findings if the one in the sun grew taller than the plant in the shade. So that is how it is. Then next step, number 6, is generalization. That is, making a rule from findings. The scientific may conclude that plants grow better in sunlight than in shade. Then number 7 is principle. Basic rules that explain how something works, like sunlight help plants make food through photosynthesis. And number 8 step is theory. That is, big idea that explain many cases. Then number 9 is phenomena. That is, understanding things in nature, explaining why plants grow better in the sun. So that is how we carried out research. We have to like do a systematic way, that is step by step, then objective. You control the observation, you analyze, you report, you generalize, you put principle and theories and phenomena. So those are the kind of steps we normally take. Now we can now start talking about research method. Research methods. What is a research method? A research method in education are always researchers. So they are researchers study and understand teaching, learning, and a research method in education are ways researchers study, understand teaching, learning, and school to improve education. So we research to study and understanding, teaching and learning, and also to improve education in school. So we have different method used or type of research method. We have like 5 types of research method. We have the quantitative, we have the qualitative, we have the mixed, we have the experimental, and we have the action research method. So the first one is quantitative. What does it mean is that it focuses on numbers and statistics. E.g., when you are using tests, you are using scores to measure student performance. That kind of research, it is called quantitative. And we have another research method. This is qualitative method of research. This is the using of interview observations, like watching how students interact in group to know the study opinion and behaviors. So when you are using this kind of method, you are doing qualitative method. Then we have another one which is called mixed method. That is research combine both approach to get a full pictures. Then number 4 is experimental research. That is testing how new teaching method or material to see if they improve learning. That is experimental. If you are trying to use this kind of method, you can call it experimental research. Then number 5 is action research method. This allows teachers to study and solve problems in their own. That is, research method helps teachers improve their teaching, assist schools in creating better learning environments, and guide policymakers in making informed decisions about education. So this is what research method does. So if you choose to be a researcher, you should be expecting this kind of work. You have to research in order to make some other people's feel better. Then we're moving on to concept of education. So when you have this kind of words or sentence, what comes to your mind first is to split it. We already know the meaning of education. Now we need to know what is the meaning of concept. A concept is an expression of an abstraction formed from generalization. A concept is an expression of an abstraction formed from generalization of particulars. So, for example, weight. This expression is from observation of certain behavior or weight. So, when you say when you say general idea now, general idea is based on what we observed, e.g., learning. You notice that students are learning, and learning is an idea we observed, but it is broad and not directly measured. So under it, we have something like construct. It is a concept that has been formulated so that it can be used in science. It is defined so that it can be observed and measured. So a specific idea that we define and measure, e.g., a test score to measure learning. And to measure learning, you create a test. The test score becomes a way to define and measure the concept of learning. So that is what this particular concept of education is all about. So let's continue from variable. So variables, as I said earlier, so it can be defined as a property. And what I mean by property here is anything that can be measured and that can take on different values. It's something that can change or vary in a study. It can have different values. So properties like weight, speed, height. So these are the kind of variables we are talking about. And we have types of variables. We have like many types of variables, like independent variables, dependent variables, control variables, extraneous variables, categorical variables, and continuous variables. So let's explain this one by one. When I say independent variables, so this factor, the factor that is changed or controlled. When I say changed, that means it's something that can be adjusted in an experimental. So when you're carrying experience and you have a values or variables that you can change, that you can manipulate, we call it independent variable. For example, if you give students,
that is the factor that can
study methods
that is changed or controlled.
If you give students study method, the study method is independent.
That is, for example, that I told us before, that
method
if you
like
give students
lecture,
study method,
discussion,
that is, you are using any different kind of methods.
It's an independent variable
to know which of the one that we should.
Then we have another variable which is called dependent variables. The dependent variable that is the outcome that is measured.
So that is what we mean by
when you say measured,
we have looked at the variables, the types of variables,
the outcome that is observed or measured in response to changes.
So we'll be
in the independent variables.
Educational research again.
Score. Because the dependent
educational research
on the study
is the systematic study, as we said earlier,
after
of educational teaching method, learning process,
score,
and the factors that affect education.
This method is good for
this
them.
Educational research helps improving teaching,
that their values, their variables can change,
using
and those things, the outcome that you see,
systematic study, educational
after
research. You follows a structured and organized approach
is what we call
using methods like experiment,
those are the variables
and observation.
And those are the variables
study of education
for our
then
results.
In this research,
we'll talk about number 3,
educational research, we have
those are the
types of educational
that
research
are kept constant to ensure a fair test.
Number 1 is historical
variables.
Number 2 is survey,
that are
and number 3 is experimental.
Test. For example,
so we have these 3 types of educational research.
For the same
it depends on the one you are trying to use.
So this particular
factor, if you are using historical, it means that
because teachers
when you are using historical
at the same time to teach them.
Historical is the kind of research that is based on oral evidence.
A fair test. So that
who
will have
complaints.
Maybe it's
1978
my
said
class is in the morning,
and historical research is based on oral evidence, and this examine past evidence, trends, or educational policy to understand their impact on the present and the future.
We look at
for example, now you are studying the evolution of teaching methods. This particular method
that is the unwanted factors that might affect the dependence.
And
e.g.
want to like
in noisy environment
carry the research on
test
it.
Score.
So this kind of research now
this one,
it is called historical
factors,
because
and we have many unwanted
before.
Factors in school, like when people are making
number 2
noise,
is survey research.
When
can also be called a descriptive
when anything
research.
Happen,
that
like
is,
maybe someone
this collect data from a large group of people
someone bring
through
questionnaire,
interview,
all these kind of
or
factors,
observation
they are unwanted,
to understand opinion, attitudes, or behaviors. For example, conducting a survey on student learning programs.
And we have another variables which is categorical variables.
This kind of
in categorical variables, variables with different categories.
You have to come off,
but no numerical values.
Of questionnaire.
Like for example, you have gender, you have blood group.
People can give you some answers
when you are
in your survey, then you
based on their
record
genders.
It. Then the number 3 is experimental research.
Based on
this involves conducting experiments
that is
for research purpose.
Variables. We call them
for research process. And that this involves
6, which is the
manipulating variables in a controlled environment to establish cause and effect relationship.
Within a range.
For example, testing how different teaching techniques affect student performance.
So among this kind of variables now, we are asked to choose a topic.
Research you are doing experimental
to write
research.
On.
And we have basic method
we are
of
asked to work on this independent variables.
Basic method of
that
research.
Is the factor that can that is changed or controlled. This factor you can control it in an experimental.
We have basic method of research.
That I told us before that if you give
which are the
study method,
descriptive
that is, you
method
are using any
and
different
test and
kind
fit
of method
So descriptive method describes systematically a situation or an area of interest factually and accurately. This particular kind of descriptive is talking about maybe population census studies.
Educational
and
research.
case and feed method is studying intensively the current background status
study as we
and environmental interaction of a given society unit.
And the factors
So in this case, that means you are studying a child whose IQ is above average, but having severe learning disabilities. So these are the kind of basic method of research method that we have.
Follows a structured and organized approach.
Then we have characteristics of
experiment,
research method
and observation.
So we are still in education
Study
and research
of education.
Method. So we have the characteristics of research method. And this educational research we have like 5 or more.
Research.
So number 1 characteristics.
Number 1 is historical.
Number 1 characteristics.
Number 2 is survey. And number 3 is experimental. So
what
we have
mean by it is empirical
research.
Is that
it depends on the one you are trying to use.
It involves collections of data that can be used to draw conclusion.
This particular, when you are using historical,
empirical.
Historical is the kind of research that is based on oral evidence.
That is what has been examined and generally accepted.
1978 he said
then we have
an historical research is based on oral evidence, and this examine past evidence.
It aims at building of relevant
to understand their impact on the present and future. For example, now you are studying the evolution of teaching methods. This particular method now,
it is also cumulative. When scientific are trying to build on
carry the research
on existing facts,
so this kind of research now it is called historical
and
because it has happened before.
Existing principle.
Then number 2 is survey research. Can also be called
then we have another one that it is non-ethical.
This collects data from a large group of people.
Scientific always attempt to find the logical explanation for any actions and afford value judgment.
For example,
without seeking to answer questions such as whether an action is right or wrong.
So this kind of
it is very viable.
Method you have to like come in form of
among the characteristics is that it is very viable. A scientific investigation
questionnaire so that
leads to verifiable
can give you some answers in your survey, then you record it.
If then your research is not very viable, that is not a research.
This involves conducting experiments for research purposes. For research process,
if it is not cumulative,
this involves manipulating variables in a controlled environment to establish cause and effect relationship. For example, testing out different
so we now move on to the process of education research and report writing.
So this kind of this thing now, if you are doing this kind of research,
then we have the process of educational research and
then
report
we have
writing.
Basic method of
so this
research.
Is a step-by-step way of finding answer to questions about education and writing down the findings in a clear and organized
we have basic method of research,
organized format,
which are the descriptive method and case and fit method.
What is educational research? We always ask this question.
Systematically,
and to me, to this one is when you study or investigate something
and
related to learning, teaching, or schooling,
and accurately.
And a report writing is when you write out what you did and what you find in a proper format, so others can understand
it. Method is studying intensively
example,
the current background,
why some students do not like maths,
and environmental interaction of a given society unit.
Why some students do not like
case,
maths. This is a problem, and you are asked to carry out the research to find out
above average,
how,
but having
why is it that
learning
you want to know why, so that you can
are the kind of basic
help some
of
other students
to have
solve the problem. So when you are asked this question, this particular question is a research question. And
we are still
when
in
you
educational
collect
research
answer,
method.
it is called
So
data.
we have the characteristics of research method,
data.
and
And
these
when
characteristics
you write
we
what
have
you
like
found,
5 or more.
it is
So
called
number one
report.
characteristics.
So in research, this is actually
Number
what
one characteristics.
We research, we
It is
collect data,
empirical.
and we
What do you mean by it is empirical? Is that
so after our project now,
it involves collections of data that can be used.
We are asked to be writing the
That is what we mean by
that is what we call
empirical.
project material.
Collection of data that can be used to draw conclusion.
Sorry.
That is what has
so let me
been
run through
examined
some
and generally
steps before we
accepted.
call it a day.
Then we have it is
And this is where we are going to stop.
We know
So
that
if you are giving any research, we have some steps that you need to follow.
At building
and
of relevant,
number one step is identify a problem or topic. So you have to like get a problem.
In
your research work must solve a problem. And that is what we do. That is when they will ask us to go and choose an area in education that interests us. That means choose a topic in education that interests us.
And
so that is number one stage in research. Then this particular thing now, for example, is what is the impact of online learning on students' performance?
It does not consider issues.
For those of us that are still finding project
always attempt to find the logical explanation
what is the impact of online learning
any actions and avoid value judgment without seeking to answer questions such as whether an action
then
is
step
right
2 is that you have to review
it is verifiable
of related literature.
Among
you
the
have to like get those people that have worked on a similar something.
Leads
so
to
this particular step now, you'll be reading books, articles,
so it is
and past research
if your research
to understand
is not verifiable, that means it's not a research.
what has already been studied.
So
it will help you to define your research question carefully.
If it is not cumulative, it is not a research.
So number 3 step is formulate research question
and it's supposed to
or hypothesis.
Also be empirical.
Formulate research question or hypothesis that is
so
ask specific, clear, and researchable questions.
And report writing.
For example, does online learning improve test score compared to classroom learning?
Research and report writing.
You ask questions so that you can be able to work
step way of finding
answer
to questions.
Then step 4 is that you choose a research design.
Writing down the findings.
Decide the type of
and organized
research format. That is it qualitative? That is, you want to use interview or observation method.
Research, we always ask this question.
Do you want to use quantitative? And that is, you want to use survey and experiment, or you want to use mixed method. That is both. You want to use both quantitative or quantitative method.
And then report writing.
Then number 5 step is that you collect data. That is, you can use tools like questionnaires, interview, observation,
example
and test
why some students don't like maths. Then you are given a research to do that.
Then we have number 6 that analyze the data. This is after you collect the data and you are asked to analyze. You use analytic for numbers or coding for words and things to make sense to the data. Just like Excel, Google Sheet.
So when you are asked this question, this particular question is a research question
to analyze our
when you
data.
collect
so
answer,
at the end of the day, when you collect your data, you'll be using table, you'll be using chart, you'll be using pie chart
you write
to analyze it.
Found. It is called report.
So number 7 is that you have to interpret the results.
We research.
You are collecting data, you are analyzing it. You have to interpret it for people to understand. So what do you do?
So after our
what do the numbers or pattern means? All those things that you put in your tables, you have to explain to us what it means.
That is what we call project material.
Do things answer your research question? All those things you collect, does it answer your research question?
Before we call it a day.
So you have to like ask yourself.
And this
so
is
that
where
your
we're going
research
to stop.
will be valid.
So if you are giving any research, we
then
have
number
some
8 is that you write the research report.
Then
after you have done
number
all
one step
this,
is
then you put
identify
it in
a
the writing.
problem or topic.
It's a typical structure. There is structure on table
Your
pages,
research work must solve a
title
problem,
page,
and
abstract,
that is
introduction,
that is when they will ask
literature
us to go
review,
and choose
methodology,
an area
result
in
discussion,
education that
conclusion,
interests us.
recommendation,
That means choose a
reference
topic
or
in
reference.
education that
Appendix,
interests us.
that one is
So
optional.
that is number one stage in research.
Then
This particular
number
stage,
9
for example,
is
what is the impact
proofread
of
and
online
edit.
learning
After you
on
have written
student
your
performance?
report,
This is a
you
research
check it,
question.
you read it, you
For
edit
those of us
it,
that are still
check
finding
for
project
grammar,
topic,
spellings
you can do
and
this.
clarity,
What is the
ensure
impact of online
citation
learning
and
on
references follow a
students'
format
performance?
of
So
API
this is an
style,
independent question.
either API style or
Step 2
MLA
is that
style.
you have to review.
So, but the common
of
one we
related
normally use
literature.
for reference
You have
is
to like
API
get
style.
those people that have worked
So you have to
on a
make sure it follows all
similar
those
something.
format. Then number
So
10
this
is that you
particular step
submit
now, you'll be reading
or
books,
present the report.
articles,
So
and
after you
past
have
research
finished
to
editing,
understand
it's okay for you and you have
what
printed,
has already
you have
been
to submit
studied.
your project. You have to
So
submit
it
your
will help you
report.
to define
So
your
you may
research
present
question
it
carefully.
at a seminar if it's
So
possible.
number 3
If
step
they
is
organize
formulate
seminar for you
research
to present
question
it, you
or
present it at a
hypothesis.
seminar or you defend it
Formulate
in the
research
school.
question or hypothesis that
Then
is
if it's
ask
possible, you
specific,
publish it
clear,
in a
and
journal.
researchable
So
questions.
these are the kind of
For
steps
example,
that we
does
need to
online
take when
learning
writing our
improve
report,
test
or
score
when writing
compared
our
to
research,
classroom
or when
learning?
carrying out a
You
research.
ask
The number
questions
1
so that
is
you
to
can
identify
be
a
able to
problem
work
that is getting
and
the
get the
topic.
facts
You
that you
review
want.
of related
Step 4 is that you
literature,
choose a
that
research
is,
design.
read books, articles,
Decide
and
the
past
type
research
of
for your own to get fact information.
research.
Then you formulate the
That
research.
is it qualitative?
You choose a research design by
you want
choosing
to
whether it's
use
qualitative
interview
or
or
quantitative
observation
method you are going to
method?
use or mixed. Then you
Do you
collect
want to use
data,
quantitative?
that is
you
using
want to use
questionnaire,
survey
interview
and
to collect data.
experiments?
Then
Or
you
you want to
analyze
use
your
mixed
data,
method? That
you
means both.
interpret your
You want to use
data,
both
then you write
quantitative
your
or
report, you
quantitative
edit
method.
your report,
Then number
then
5
you present
step
your
is that you
report.
collect
So those are
data.
the kind of
That is,
steps
you can use
that we
tools
normally
like
take when
questionnaires,
writing a
interview,
report.
observation, and test
So
to
you have
collect
taken the
data.
step.
Then we have number 6 that
Then
analyze
conclusion,
the data.
don't forget to
After you collect the
subscribe
data,
and like our
you
videos.
analyze, you
And one
use
of you,
analytic for
Rahim,
numbers
I'm
or coding
also
for
a
words and
student
teams
teacher
to make
trying
sense
to
to the
improve
data.
myself
Tools like
and
Excel,
being
Google Sheet.
helpful
So those are
to
the kind
my
of
colleagues.
tools we
For those
can
people that are joining
adopt
late, we have
to analyze
run
our
everything
data. So at
from
the
the
end of the day,
beginning
when you
to
collect your
where we
data,
stopped.
you'll be using
So we'll be
table, you'll be
looking
using
at other
chart, you'll be
subjects
using
or
pie
other
chart to analyze it.
program, which is now today we are done
So
with
number 7 is that
methods
you have
in
to
education
interpret the results.
706 for now.